doctor, my amputee clinic. I got my toenails trimmed in podiatry, got an eye exam, and I ate sushi, and it was rolled in front of me. The VA is trying really hard to change what you're teaching America about, you're saying, that it's a bad place. And I know that it has had lots of problems, but they are working very hard to make them better.
All right.
And Seattle's kind of a model, but maybe for your next book.
That's the thing that we need to note here. I think that we determined from previous shows, we've done a lot of shows about the VA system, Sally. It seems to be a pretty localized problem. We have, every time we talk about VA care, we have a call like Mike who says, well, I go to the Smith Center and they treat me like a king. And then somebody else will call and say, yeah, well, over at the Jones Center, it's lousy. So it seems to be localized and regionalized, a lot of the VA problems.
Well, yes, you're absolutely right. And by the way, I'm from Vancouver, BC, so Seattle is a place that I'd love to go and visit when I lived in Vancouver. It's a place to sort of get away. There's no question that President Trump has been working very hard to try and solve a lot of the problems with the VA. There's been a lot of fraud in addition to the long waiting lists and the ration care and the lack of access to the latest drugs. So you're very lucky that you've got really good care. And I know they're working very hard. They want to bring in some private, elements to the VA so that people can get better care, that they don't have to wait so long, because many of the goals that have been set by the VA have not been able to be met. And so private options are being explored. And I think that, these are positive things. And I'm glad that you have had good care.
Absolutely. We are glad to hear that, Mike. Here's Karen in Northwest Ohio for Sally Pipes. Hello, Karen.
Hi there. Hi, Sally. Hi, Jimbo.
Hi.
I am a first-time caller. I would like to comment on the fact that I know that the system and his idea is got problems, but I lost my husband almost 2 years ago, and with him I lost good insurance. And then I had to get insurance on my own, which cost me a premium that I didn't have because I'd lost 2/3 of my income, and it's a $15,000 deductible, which means if I have a traumatic accident or a health issue, I'm $15,000 in debt immediately. Then recently, my son was involved in a car accident where he was a passenger, and the car flipped over and he broke his neck, which immediately took him out of his job, which he had just started. So he had no insurance. Right. And it has been the most frustrating thing I have ever gone through in my life. The only way that he can get any kind of health care is to go to an emergency room and bog them down because they can't refuse service.
All right.
Now, and his first 2 days, the first 2 days, emergency and 1 day in ICU without doctor bills is $70,000.
Wow, that is pretty intense. We've got about 45 seconds for a response, Sally.
Well, did you get your insurance after your husband passed away through one of the exchanges in Illinois or healthcare.gov?
Or Ohio,
Or Ohio, sorry.
Well, I'm actually in Illinois. He got it wrong, but that's okay.
Right, I thought,
I actually went through a friend who got me Blue Cross Blue Shield Blue Choice, I guess is what it is, because it's based on my income, which is, it's not that much. But the whole point is, it's like, other than going to a wellness and getting female something done, it does me absolutely no good.
Right. Well,
as I said, the 45 seconds was not an arbitrary figure I tossed out there. So, if, Karen, you want to stay on the line, we'll get a response after the news at the top of the hour. Sally Pipes, the author of False Premise, False Promise. She is with the Pacific Research Institute. And I'm Jim Bohannon. We come to you weeknights here at Westwood One. Hello there, good evening. Welcome to the Jim Bohannon Show from Westwood One Radio. We're at 1-866-50-JIMBO, 1-866-505-4626. Online, find us at JimBohannonShow.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Jimbo Talks. We continue our conversation with Sally Pipes, the president and CEO at PacificResearch.org, the Pacific Research Institute. She's written a book, False Premise, False Promise, published by Encounter Books and subtitled The Disastrous Reality of Medicare for All. And as the break intervened, we were continuing a conversation with Kathy, who called in from, what is it? Is it Northwest Illinois, not Ohio? Is that right, Karen?
Yes, Yes.
Karen, yes, all right.
It is, yes.
Very good. All right. You were having considerable difficulties with the deductibles and an accident to your son, Sally?
And
well, go ahead, Karen. Go ahead.
oh, and then he went and applied for emergency public aid and was told he made too much money. And I'm like, okay, he has no job. He has no future job because breaking his neck, he can no longer be a stunt person. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, how is that possible? Waited 4.5 hours on a neck break there to be told.
Yeah. Well, it does seem like a very, very unfortunate circumstance, and our heart goes out to you, Sally Pipes. What can you tell Karen?
Well, yeah, I mean, that is a very sad story. The whole idea of under Obamacare was expanding Medicaid, the program for low-income Americans. So if your son had this terrible accident and he was earning under 138% of the federal poverty level, which is about $33,000, he should be eligible for Medicaid, and then he would have coverage. So I can't understand why he couldn't get on the Illinois Medicaid program. The second thing is we need all kinds of different types of health care for so that people can choose. There should be competition and choice. The problem is, under Obamacare, there are 10 essential health benefits. Under most state plans, there are 45 to 50 mandates that insurance companies have to provide. And so, whether it's in vitro fertilization, hair prostheses, alcohol rehabilitation, all of these things add 20 to 50% to the cost of a premium. And so, we need to get, the thing would be, people should be able to get the kind of insurance they want, and to get rid of all of these mandates that add to the cost, and then people can choose. If I want a plan that includes alcohol rehabilitation, I should be able to buy it. If Karen wants just a strip plan that covers catastrophes, that would work. Also, right. The plans, the issue is very difficult for new entrants to come into the field of healthcare because of all these mandates. So, there are 5 or 6 companies, whether it's Aetna, Anthem Blue Cross, Blue Shield, Cigna, no new entrants into the field because it's difficult to enter the field because it's very difficult to make a living in the health insurance industry as it's structured now.
Well, obviously, state legislatures should stop listening to every penny ante little lobbying group with a pet peeve.
Right,
Bill,
exactly.
Bill in Akron, Ohio. Good evening, Bill.
Yeah, hello. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
I think her presumptions are a bit distorted. I think it depends on what city you live in and how many doctors are living in that city and how many hospitals are in that city. And if it depends on the seriousness of your reasons for going to see a doctor. If you can't see your doctor, they have nurse practitioners, they have urgent care offices, they have emergency rooms where you can see somebody in an hour immediately. And Jim, do you have Medicare or do you have veterans insurance?
I have health insurance through my job, and I also have Medicare. But that fact notwithstanding, I'd like our guest to respond to you.
Well, one more thing.
Well, yes, okay, go ahead. What? Just a minute. Okay, Bill. What's the one more thing? What's the one more thing?
How is Vancouver compared to like Tacoma or Sacramento, California?
Well, okay, we'll get to that as well. But go ahead, Sally.
Sorry, now I've lost my train of thought over all this.
Well, he felt that there are always options based on the size of the city,
right.
Whether or not you see a nurse practitioner, and what have you.
But it's interesting. The American Association of Medical Colleges has just come out with their statistics showing that by 2030 there's going to be a shortage of 122,000 doctors in this country. A lot of doctors are getting out of the practice of medicine because of regulations, electronic health records, and things like that. So, and that is even before you consider something like Medicare for all. Yes, people can turn up at an emergency room. Uncompensated care is the most expensive care in the country. And if you remember, President Obama brought in Obamacare because he said that too many people were going to emergency rooms for very expensive care. And his wife, Michelle said that she was a vice president at the University of Chicago Medical School, and she said many people that are using the emergency room as their sort of primary care, really University of Chicago, the emergency room should be there for people who have strokes and heart attacks, and these people should be going to community hospitals. So different cities, different sizes of cities. If we get Medicare for all, there's no question that a lot of hospitals would be closed down, and particularly those would be those ones in rural areas. Vancouver is a city, the city I'm from, city of about 3 million people. My cousin's an ophthalmologist there. His global budget for what he does for healthcare ends in November. He can't get any more money from the provincial government for what he does, and so he has to take a vacation. My niece, she is an orthopedic surgeon. When she graduated, all these people in Canada on waiting lists for new knees and new hips and shoulders, but she couldn't get a job. She could set up her own practice, but there would be no government funding to fund her because the provincial governments are the only funders. And so, here you have a demand for healthcare. You have someone who can supply it, but the government isn't willing to pay for it because they can't afford it. They want to keep 11% of GDP for spending on healthcare.
All right. And a final call for our guest from Rowena in Wilmington, Delaware. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm so glad that you brought out these. This book is great. It's great. I worked in healthcare for over 30 years on the financial end, and everything that you're saying is absolutely correct. National Medicare for everyone is a pipe dream. It cannot happen. And there will be lines, there will be riots in the streets if people really knew what it all entailed. I've seen people from all over the world come into our healthcare system just to get procedures done. If people do not believe what you're telling them, if they think back a couple of years ago when the government got involved with Part D, people had drug coverage in this country before Part D became available. Once that happened, there was no longer private insurance for Part D. It may have helped out a segment of the population that wasn't able to pay for their drugs, that's helped them supplement, but there was a large portion of people who actually paid for premiums, were able to pay a small copay, and were able to get their drugs. Once the government got involved, it was big business for the insurance companies and a $1,500 donut hole for everyone else for some very expensive drugs. It did not work.
All right. And
so
thoughts, Sally Pipes.
Well, it's so nice to end on somebody who is, supportive of what I'm saying. Actually, I took the train from New York down to Washington this morning, and we had a stop in Wilmington, Delaware. So I just looked out of the window and saw that, your main street and things like that. You're absolutely right in everything that you said. Part D, Nancy Pelosi and a number of Democrats in the House are trying to, bring in price controls on the drugs so that the government would negotiate with the insurers, with the drug companies, so that the government would be determining what drugs you could get, what drugs would be available, how much they would be, which is really a disaster as well. So that's an added problem with government getting involved in our healthcare system.
All right, Sally, as always, a pleasure. Thank you for being on.
Thank you so much, Jim. Take care.
You bet. You take care as well. Sally Pipes, again, the author of False Premise, False Promise from Encounter Books. When we come back, we'll return to the I word. 1-866-50-JIMBO is our number, 1-866-505-4626, and we'll be back in just a moment. Glad you're with us on the Jim Bohannon Show tonight. 1-866-50-JIMBO, 1-866-505-4626. And Jerry Bodlander reports that there's one more day of questioning in the impeachment trial, and after that, some big questions.
The Senate's in the midst of questioning the House impeachment managers and the president's defense team. But senators don't do the actual asking. Instead, they write their question on a card.
As Chief Justice, I send a question to the desk.
And Chief Justice John Roberts then reads the question.
What standard of proof should be used in trials of impeachment? preponderance
Many
of the
questions are
evidence
designed to poke holes in an opponent's case or buttress their own case, and they've run the gamut of issues, including executive privilege, subpoena power. Do high crimes and misdemeanors have to be a violation of the criminal code? And the possibility of former National Security Advisor John Bolton testifying, and the like. The draft of a book that Bolton wrote says the president told him